Good afternoon, YouTube. It's man all the way George Page coming to you live on YouTube. As you know, I did a video earlier where I talked about there was so many birthdays that was over the weekend, and this one was I missed. I just forgot about it, and it's my fault. I should be really on the game about it, and this should have been the first birthday video I should have done. But today we are observing his birthday, and I think this is a good reason to go ahead and do the video. And this is one Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, here's a little thing about him. He was originally born Michael Luther King Jr. because his father, Reverend King Sr., and they decided, to change his name. Now, you know, he grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. He was the middle son of three children. I know how to be. I'm the middle son in among my mother's children. And he just had an amazing thing about him. I mean, as a kid, his father, Albert King Sr., and his mother Alberta, they were in the church, and they were very religious. And his father was a preacher himself. I forget what I think it was a Baptist, or he followed his father's footsteps. So when he got older, he went to college, went to Morehouse College, and also he went into what's it called? I forgot what they call when you go to what is it? I think it's I'm trying to remember what it is. It's he goes he went to Morehouse College, and he studied you know a lot of politics, historical stuff, and also he was into very much that he wanted to follow his father's footsteps. He studied. He went to seminary school, and after when he was in school, he met a young Coretta Scott, and they fell in love with each other, and eventually they got married. And when he graduated from school, he kind of followed his ideals of his beliefs and went out into the world and really wanted to help people and also, preach the word of God. And, him and Coretta had four beautiful children, and, they raised them in the faith, and also the children watched as their father fought and stood up for the rights of our people. You know, he went out into some parts, the poor sections of the South, to reach the people, help them with their education, to get them the voters' rights, to let them know that being that you're poor, you have the right as any other citizen in this country. You know, and Dr. King gave many speeches over time. Speaking to people about fighting for their rights. He also believed in nonviolence. And he didn't believe in starting a fight. He just he was a man who believed in turning the other cheek. He was very Christian. You know, and he went through a lot of stuff. When he went to marches, being harassed by police, being harassed by white people, you know, being thrown into jail, arrested, beaten. I mean, even, there was an attempt on his life several times. And this one where, he was lucky to survive. But, he was still strong. And, and we all know the March on Selma, which was the first march was called Bloody Sunday, when the police and the state troopers and everybody went after him with dogs and fire hoses. But then the next march was a few years later, a little bit later, was a march where nothing really happened to him. That was Selma was in Mississippi, and the governor at the time was, not very fond of Martin Luther King, but I think somebody put a push on him, I believe, because there was a lot of celebrities that was in that second march. And I think, he might have got a little call from somebody to tell him not to do that. Now, Dr. King, like I said, even though he was a, man about his faith and his belief, and, as I said, he believed in turning a cheek. And, and this is where example where the kneeling come in, because he prayed. And this was inspiration for people like Colin Kaepernick, because, people talking about, taking a knee like against the country, but, before it's soldiers doing it. And this has been done for years. It's not about the country. It's about your faith, and you trust in your fellow man. But he's also was like any other guy. He had like have a good time, and those stories like J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, had recorded some stuff, but I'm not gonna talk about that. And they always thought that he was a communist, a threat to the United States, but he was not a threat to the United States. And he reached out to celebrities, like hear him with Sammy Davis Jr., and here see with Mark with Muhammad Ali, which I talked about earlier in my video yesterday, how his beliefs and ideologies, even though they had different ideologies, they believed in the same thing, the advancement of our people. And even him and Malcolm X, they had different fence. While he believed in nonviolence, and Malcolm X believed in by any means necessary. Both men had the same ideology for the advancement of our people. And back in '63, there was the march on on DC, and this is a crowd. This is probably more black people next to probably more black people than it was in the Millman March, and just think about it. We just had that thing with the state capitol long ago, and it just this I mean, what would they do with had this many black people? And, and then he gave his "I Have a Dream" speech at the Lincoln Memorial. As you know, Lincoln was the man who freed slaves, and people don't know a lot of things about Dr. King. Dr. King was a registered Republican, and the thing is, you think, well, we got to remember, originally a lot of blacks in the South were Republicans because the Republican Party helped free, because of Lincoln helped free slaves. But even though they kind of turned it back to us just so they can get the support of the white Democrats. But there's a part here. I remember I watched a speech one time a few years ago, and there's a part there was a police officer who was there on the other side of Dr. King, and we was talking. The officer took and adjusted Dr. King's microphone. Watch that speech and watch that part. And this is what amazed me about that. This man who is white, a white police officer, especially now with things going on with police and police brutality, he was there. He did that for that little favor. And even at the end, when Dr. King ended the speech, he smiled and clapped, while the other officers didn't have the same respect for Dr. King. I think my ideology saw a troublemaker. And then in '64, he became the youngest and man, and also I think the first black man to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, and, our former president, number 44, Barack Obama, is also, he's, being a black man to get the Nobel Peace Prize. But there's been several other black men, but this is the one that was more notable for us to see this man holding this award for peace. And his political, as I said before, he was a Republican, but he was had very lot influence in the Democrat Party. Like John F. Kennedy reached out to him, and Lyndon B. Johnson, after he was the president after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, reached out to him. He may not like Dr. King's ideologies, but he needed him to be able to get his get his support for his presidency, during his time as presidency. But that's why he never became president after a full second term. And then in '68, Dr. King was assassinated. He was in Memphis, Tennessee, and he was going to be there to give a speech, and he was assassinated on his at his motel on the balcony. And before that day, before he it was a few days before, it was I think a day or two before the speech, before his assassination, he gave a speech, and that speech was just like I think he knew he was going to die. I don't know, maybe he just felt like it. I'm just not sure, but it just because of that there was riots because of his death. But we should have been stronger. We should have maintained. We should have not let this tragedy break us. And years later, President Jimmy Carter, he awarded Dr. King the Medal of Freedom, and his wife Coretta Scott King, she took the medal in his honor. I mean, this is a great thing, and he's still influential today. I mean, like there's so many politicians that owe the influence of Dr. King and what he said and what he did for us. I mean, like our first black president, Barack Obama, our first female, black vice president, Kamala Harris. I mean, this is what he wanted to see, for our people to advance, and we still have to advance. And even just a while ago, is we have the state of Georgia just you know, picked a black man. This represents in the Senate, a black man, another man who's Jewish, which is was remember Dr. King. He often worked with the Jewish League. He worked with one thing that this is one thing that people said. I think there was a book I read years ago. The reason why they killed Dr. King was the fact was he was going to try to unite groups like the Jewish League, the women's right groups, the other minority groups. Even there's also the truth that he had a man who worked for him who was gay, and he was trying to get under one umbrella and make a manifest. If you get all these individual minority groups together, they can be a force to reckon with against the majority. You know, and even now, we wouldn't know what he would say about the Black Lives Matter movement. I think he would be proud, even though these young people and just the people in general, even though they're fighting for the freedom and the right to be seen as humans, not to be killed by paid state employees. We always wonder what would have been like if Dr. King had lived today. I mean, just imagine, how much influence he would have had if he was still around. And then, as you know, not that long ago, they created the Dr. King Memorial, and I think today is the 10th anniversary for it, and I think they're supposed to be doing honor it today. I'm probably gonna watch some of the news, and they probably post it on YouTube. But I guess I'm gonna try to watch it because this is the day. Even though his birthday was the 15th, he was born the first of the 15th, in 1929. But we observe his birthday always that Monday after it. Or sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes his birthday will fall on a Monday. And just the people, just don't take the day off. Take the time, especially as a black people. We need to remember, what this man has done for us, how he risked his life, and how he risked his own well-being, and then he just sacrificed, and he's just an amazing man, and and there can be no one like him. It's just there's just so much that we wish that if he lived just a little longer, how much more he could accomplish. I think there was some talks that believed that he probably could have got a position in the next administration if he lived longer. Maybe I won't say Secretary of State or something like that under Lyndon B. Johnson. But like I said, this is just amazing man, a legend, a king, a true king. A man among men, and his sacrifice of his life, his well-being, the safety of his family. He risked so much for all of us, and not just like I said, not just black people, but all people in general. Like he said in his speech, he wants to see his children sit in the same table with the children of slave masters and slave owners. I mean, it's just something we want to accomplish. We want to, even though with things now, even though it's a little bit better than it was before, it's still some hardships of racism in America, and it's gonna be a long time before we take it out. Racism is something like this. You just can't cut it out with a knife. You have to cut it out with a scalpel. This is to you, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Rest in power, and you were one of the greatest men in all of history. This is your man, all the way George Page. Like, don't like, subscribe, don't subscribe. I'm out.